All right, Fierce FC 31 is in the books, and Zach, it was an absolute barn burner from start to finish. The main and co-main certainly stole the show. We're going to kick things off with Max Taylor and Dorian Ishmael. Max Taylor getting the win via KO.
Super happy for Max. Obviously, he's one of my teammates. I trained with him at One Hit. Super excited for him. And I thought Dorian, for being quote-unquote independent, he had some moments in that first round too, and I thought he did some really good things. Just Max put one on the button and turned his lights off, and I mean, really, really fun fight that kind of set the mood for the night.
Ethan Fleming getting the submission win over Cade Vermillion. Ethan Fleming doing that in the second round.
Ethan looked really good. You know, all those Tooele martial arts guys, you kind of come to expect some good grappling from them, and he was. I thought Ethan did a very good job staying composed. Cade, he has some things that he can go back to the drawing board and learn from, but he also had some good things in that round too to build off of.
How about Aiden Egler getting the slick submission win as well?
He looked really impressive, and I thought for two debuters, for Luis to come out and throw as big of bombs as he was throwing. I mean, he was throwing with bad intentions, and for an 0-0 debuter like Aiden to stay composed with that fire coming in his face, I thought was really impressive. I thought he looked really, really solid. I think two good showings from two debuters.
Juliangz getting the decision nod over Ben Evans.
I mean, I think Julian did a really good job. I thought he could have got it out of there a few times, but Ben has no quit. He's a lot of fun. He's a kind of a ball of energy type guy, and it was kind of interesting. His first fight, he started with a flying knee. This time he started really slow and composed, so definitely like to see a lot more out of both of them.
How about Dosam Leon with the TKO finish over Calvin Taylor, a guy who was 0-1 coming into this? Calvin Taylor 1-0, and Dosam gets it done.
I mean, I think it speaks like we knew Dosam was going to be super tough. With his loss being a decision loss to Lane Dalton, we know what kind of stud he is. We had him on the show last September. But Calvin, somebody that I train with, he's a stud too. And Calvin, I think his first win almost came so easily for him against a really tough guy, but just the right punches landed that dropped him. And then I think this is one that it'll be really good for Calvin to now see where he can grow. When you win as dominant as you do in your debut, it's kind of hard to have that same urgency maybe in the second camp. You think it's going to come easy again. And with Dosam, it definitely didn't. Super impressive. I think Calvin's somebody that this loss will be really good for him, and Dosam, obviously, his loss was good for him, and he was very impressive.
Nate Reinhardt, third straight win by finish, calls for the title, and Jackson DeGray is going to give it to him. Your thoughts on that?
I'm really interested in it. Now we just got to see. Who Nate's going to fight, right? If Jackson goes pro and vacates it, and Nate wants to fight for it, I'm here for it. So now we have some options, and it looks like a vacant bantamweight title. Then we'll have to see maybe if the right move is to put Nate there. I'm going to pull the Dana White line. I don't make fights the right after the fights, but we'll see what's next there for Nate. That definitely makes a lot of sense to have him competing for the title. He looked really good.
Giovanni Salazar with the swift submission over Bane Varner. He looked like a top 5 prospect in the amateur rankings.
Yeah,
tonight.
I think Gio's going to go pro as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves another vacant title, which is totally that's great, right? Like that you want them kind of if they win them late in their career. And Bane, that's the first time we've seen Bane at 170 in how long? Right, it's been a while for him.
I believe it's been 3 years.
He just couldn't really get going, and it seemed, I'm not sure if it was just a slow start for him or if that was what Gio was doing to him that couldn't let him get going. But I thought it was just a really impressive performance by Gio, because we know Bane, he's shown us more than that. I hope we see Bane back at 170 again and kind of get a groove in his correct weight class.
Jackson DeGray getting the submission win over Artis Lyles. Another finish for the champion, but it looks like he's going to make that jump up.
I think he's ready. I mean, I'll be honest. The way he has been finishing guys, when he came back after his layoff, he's just been on a different level mindset-wise. To me, he looks like a pro in there, and super happy for him. And Artis is, I mean, one thing me and you talked about is I thought that was a fight that might go to a decision just because, like, I mean, for Jackson to win, I thought I wasn't really sure what Jackson was going to be able to do to get him out of there because Artis is just shown to be so durable and, you know, pretty hard to submit, hard to knock out, hard to finish. So it just kind of shows for Jackson to do it the way he did it. He is probably ready to go pro.
Arthur Duflo, the longest fight of his career thus far. It was only 2 minutes and 1 second, though, Zach.
Yeah, he was, you know, you could just see how comfortable he was on the ground to make it very uncomfortable for Maggio. Gets the first round submission. You know, Maggio is another one that I think he's a guy that just needs to be a little more active. He was coming off a long layoff and a pretty serious injury, and I think we can definitely say, like, I think there's a much better version of Maggio, and I think if he can get active and get going again, we'll see that pretty quick. But super impressive, Arthur Duflo, kind of putting himself in the 145 title picture.
Cole Schaefer, that one was a lot of fun, getting the win by submission over Theo Dukas.
Man, Theo had some moments in that fight, but I thought Cole did a fantastic job kind of engaging in that first round, more on the feet and then showing it, and then in the second round changing the game plan, getting the fight to the ground a little bit. You know, Cole, at one point in his career, had got knocked out 3 straight fights. And for him to take some of the heavy shots that he did from Theo, you know, he took some against Brooks, but I thought he took some really good, clean shots from Theo as well. And he wore them well. And I think it's pretty safe to say, you know, the Vikings back and, you know, on a 2-fight win streak now. And it's going to be really interesting to see what he does next.
Mauro Gutierrez getting the win by armbar. What a finish that was. I mean, it was just back and forth between the two of them.
The only thing I wanted was more of that fight. I wanted it longer because it was so fun with both of them. But Maro with the super slick armbar finish kind of came up out of nowhere. I mean, I don't think most of the crowd saw it. It just ended, and it was just like...
We didn't on the broadcast.
Yeah, what happened? Because it was right opposite of you guys, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I could see it, and I saw it come on. I thought Austin was going to be safe, but, you know, good for Maro, and he moves to 3-0, and, you know... Austin, I think it's like one of those appropriate, like, he fought somebody really tough and you know, takes a step back. Again, let's see him a little more active maybe, and I'm sure he'll go on a run in his own right.
Did you get the chance to talk to him at all?
I just told him I loved him, and he was in really good spirits after.
Good.
I think he's just a kid that loves to compete. Both the kids, you know what's so fun is when both kids just love to compete and it's just about competition and they're appreciative and they're easy to work with and everything. You just love guys like that. I mean, that's one of those fights where you just kind of wish that both, you know, you just kind of wish that both could win. But obviously, you know, not the case, and you know, good for Maro for advancing.
I think that could have been for an NMF belt. I mean, both guys are just like the nicest
guys
in the whole
ever,
world.
Right?
Chris Chu getting the win over Jesse Salmon. We talked about the weight last night privately, and it certainly was on showcase here tonight.
I mean, Chris looked good. I mean, he's a big physical person. Like I said it at weigh-ins. The fact that he made 170 once is mind-blowing because I moved down to 170 to get away from big dudes like him. You know, like he is big. He's a problem. He's super tough, super durable. We've seen that. It's really interesting to see what he does next. I believe Jesse has a couple other fights scheduled on other promotions. So, you know, I'm sure we'll see him around, but I want to be surprised to see Jesse back in the Fierce Cage by the end of the year as well.
Kent Mafileo back in full form, but it took a little bit of time. Daniel Trejo making the most of it in that first round specifically.
I'll be honest. Like I thought Kent was. I thought we were seeing a little bit of a lax, not as much of a sense of urgency, a little bit like we did in the Vandera fight, but I think it was one of the overhands or whatever that Dan landed or Daniel landed, and you know it kind of woke Kent up, and that flip kind of switched, and you could see the intensity level kind of picked up. He started kind of picking up the pace a little bit. I think that was a fight where, all the props in the world for Daniel. He even said, I don't want to fight at heavyweight anymore. And then he came back. He's like, all right, I'll do this since Kent's opponent dropped. He was a fill-in, and he did it. And I think, like when a guy comes in like that, he earns a lot of respect from the promotion and the fans. But Kent gets back to his winning ways. And I think that fight was just... hopefully now that he can start with that switch flip next time maybe and not settle back where he's kind of going backwards and kind of playing these games. When Kent's going forward and downhill, he's pretty hard to deal with.
Speaking of people who got their respect, Hamza Salim, Jerome Hatch had everyone on their feet. 25 minutes of chaos.
I mean, that was the fight of the year. To get two guys, and to be as gassed as both of them were, they were so tired.
In the third round, it looked like it was over.
But they never really stopped. Like, usually when you see that, there's just a lot of laying on each other. They both worked for 25 minutes. I mean, another one where it's like, it kind of sucked that somebody had to lose that because, I mean, Jerome earned every bit of his respect and I mean, it just sucks that he lost the belt where I thought he probably looked as good as he has since he won it against Eric Wallin. And, you saw, and Salim, I really was questioning at one point if he was going to get off the stool. He was so tired. And they both just kept looking and searching and to find a way to try and win that fight. Big props to both of them. I mean, Jerome eating a head kick in the fifth that would have decapitated most people. He just spit out the blood and kept going. I think that's why Jerome is so beloved here in Utah. He was the highest ticket seller on the crowd. He had a huge fan base here for him. And he showed up and showed out at UVU. And I'm sure we're going to see Jerome back again because, I mean, if anybody is not interested in watching a Jerome Hatch fight after that, that was incredible. And I'm really excited to see Hamza come back and defend his title. We just got to find out against who now.
Would you make a rematch?
I'd definitely consider it. I mean, a split decision like that was so close. I mean, would you like to see more of that matchup?
I think I speak for everyone when I say yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to see that fight again? So, I mean, who knows? But I could see if both of them, I could definitely see Hamza going, yeah, no thanks. But, we'll see.
Zach, you said Trent Miller was going to have his toughest test yet. He faces his first defeat opposite Mike Jones and still the middleweight champion.
I mean, there's a thing, like Trent, there's this aura around an undefeated fighter with that confidence. And Trent looked locked in, focused, ready to go. But there's also an aura. Dude, Mike was the guy that couldn't win the title fight, couldn't win the big one, right? And then he comes out and he beats Jerome last August, gets that monkey off his back. I felt that there was an aura around Mike. When he came into the cage and he was pacing, he looked calm and relaxed and like he knew he had it. And for him to make his pro debut in this arena and then for him to cap off a night that we had a pretty incredible comeback to this arena, the way he did, getting his first submission victory as a pro or ever?
As a pro.
As a pro, getting it was pretty cool. I mean, Trent is a guy that I think, he still has. I mean, his ceiling is still UFC, right? Like, he's still a stud. He's young. He will learn and grow from this. But, Mike's in his prime now. And like I said, there's just an aura around him. Like, it was his house. It was his time to shine. He was the main event. Back-to-back main events for him here at Fierce. And it was a confident Mike Jones is going to be really, really hard for any middleweight to deal with.
I just talked to him right before we turned on the mics, and he was ecstatic. I was so happy for him to see the big smile off of Mike Jones. What a show it was. 15 fights, still got out of here at a relatively decent hour. Pretty happy about it.
Night moved.
May 31st, Fierce Fighting Championship 32. It's going to be so much fun. I was right next to Eric Iman the entire time. He can't wait for it. I think the rest of the fans agree with that.
I mean, that's a big one. We have three pro title fights on there. We have one amateur fight, Ammon Garcia defending his AMI 155 title. Julian Ruiz fighting for a 45 title, and then of course to top off the card, co-main event with Jared Van Daren defending his heavyweight title against Eric Eyman. I love that fight. And then Mikey Sear versus Joel Haro in the main event is a lot like Trent Miller versus Mike Jones. It's as good as a main event as you're going to get on a regional card. I mean, two guys that are just knocking at the door to the UFC. So really anxious and looking forward to seeing how that one plays out.
Absolutely cannot wait for it. Zach, thank you so much. Another incredible night. We will see you all on May 31st.